Hello, my name is Vic Gilgis. I'm making this podcast to help myself become happier, and I hope it's doing that for you. That's my intention, that it does that for you. And today, I'm going to talk about my cat story. The reason for this is that the other weekend I was in London attending a Three Principles conference, and it took place over 3 days. It's not a conference in what you'd call the academic sense of a conference. It's a discussion, I suppose, and presentations by Three Principles practitioners discussing what the principles are about, their experience with the principles, a lot of the, what I call the, well, like myself, older guard. I've never met Sid Banks, but there are quite a few of them that have met Sydney Banks when he was alive, and were able firsthand to get knowledge of the principles from him. And so it was a great conference. It really was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a nice break for me. And one of the speakers was Linda Pransky. And she told a cat story. It was back end of her one of her presentations, where in the last a few minutes, she said, "Do you want question and answers, or do you want a story?" And everybody shouted, "We want a story." So she told this cat story, and it was great. I liked it. But I've got a cat story. Well, that's what I thought of that in the moment, and I'm going to tell that. But before I do, Linda Pransky, married to George Pransky, Pransky and Associates are, and were then in Sydney Banks's time, consultants of, I suppose, well-being in America. A good outfit that did a lot of business in the line of helping people with improve their mental health. And the George Pransky and Associates, they changed the whole of their operation, their modus operandi, because when George Pransky and a guy called Mills that he worked with had listened to what Sydney Banks had to say, they swapped over their whole approach, and that cost them a lot of money to start with. But they were so convinced that it was a better approach because it had a higher, recidivism rate. In other words, people were not so many people coming back in need of help because they were helped and were able to carry on better than they had before. So it worked, and that is, I think, testament to the work of Mr. Mills and George Pransky. And George Pransky and Linda Pransky, to me, are like the modern Freuds. They are the top people. They really know what they're talking about. So my story, obviously, I'm not Linda Pransky. I'm not trying to copy, because I can't copy. She's just brilliant. But I have my own cat story. And by the way, many of you who are listening may not know about the Three Principles. So what I want to do is just give you a heads up on how to kind of get up to speed with the Three Principles. So middle list here. Now, if you want to, the easiest way, I think, is to go on YouTube. Now, if you go on YouTube, look for people like Dickon Bettinger, brilliant, Dr. Amy Johnson, same, and Michael Neal. And there are many others that are brilliant, but those are the three that regularly each week I look to see what they're doing, and the easiest way for you to do that, if you want to get to up to speed or get to an introduction into, there's lots of material, and 2 books. I don't know what I mean. I've got all my books over there, but I don't know. Just to pick a couple of books, there is Dickon Bettinger with Natasha Swerdloff. They've got a book called Coming Home, and Michael Neal has got a book called The Space Within. So that should do you in terms of the 3 principles to start with. But let me get on with my cat story. Now, years ago, I think it was one of my daughters. She brought us a couple of little kittens, which we named Tommy and Minnie. And I was not so happy at the time because I thought, oh my God, what do we do when we go on holiday? It's going to cost us with vets, in catteries. And I was not too pleased, and little kittens pooping all over the place. Anyway, but it was very nice of them, and there we are. So we had these 2 cats. Now, there was as different as chalk and cheese, although they were brother and sister. Minnie, she was so lovable and so nice, but the weakest of the 2. And Tommy, he used to wash her basically. And he was like a mother to her until she became stronger. But she was the loving one, and my wife and myself, we doted on them both. But Minnie was the one that kind of we liked, and personally, I didn't like Tommy. He was typical cat. He couldn't be bothered. Typical male, I suppose. Take it or leave it, and I was not impressed with him really at all. Anyway, what happened there was that poor old Minnie, she got some neurological problems, started fitting, and I say we had her for about 10 years, maybe 8, I can't remember, and she popped her clogs, bless her. It was terrible. I was heartbroken and was left with Tommy. So my story really, my cat story, is about Tommy. Because I was not, I know this sounds terrible, but in my mind, I wished it had been the other way around. I wish we'd been left with Minnie and Tommy. I know it's a terrible thing to say. I don't think I ever said it to him, but I thought it, he used to sit there next to me and sleep there next to me, and I used to think, what have you got to say for yourself? Not happy with you, because I don't know. And so it went on like that, and I think I just accepted Tommy for being the lad that he was, the cat that he was. He didn't bother me, I didn't bother him. Time passed by, and in those days I used to read the newspaper. And one day I was reading the newspaper, and it was snatched from in front of me. And when I looked, Tommy was sat there, and he'd reared up and just gone with his paw and snatched the paper away. And I was gobsmacked. And so it became a bit of a game, because what I used to do is I used to put my newspaper up, and Tommy, who was sat in front of me, he used to snatch the newspaper away. He'd do it 2 or 3 times. And before, he kind of wandered off. And it tickled me. I thought it's kind of strange, really. And then, I think my feelings started to change towards him. And one day, he literally got on his hind legs as if like a person's to stand up, and he stretched out, and I thought, he's going to get his own back here, he's going to swipe me across, going to claw my face. But he didn't. What he did, he got on his hind legs and he stretched towards me, And I was a little bit tense about this, but he just stroked the side of my face with the pads of his paw. And it was beautiful. I could not believe it that a cat could or would do that. And I could have cried. It was just beautiful. He never did it again, but he did it that once. And so this is the point of my story, and it's only a brief story, I suppose, is that I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it was I'd stopped passing judgment, which is a bad thing, I suppose. You know, that I was judging Tommy for not being the cat that I wanted compared to his sister Minnie. But I just started accepting him and accepting myself with him, and a bond between us arose. He used to come to me. He used to be so loving. I mean, when I say used to, Tommy died, I think he lasted another 10 years. I mean, I think Tommy was nearly 21 when he died. He was an old man in cat years. But my wife and myself, I'm speaking for myself here, my bond with him was so strong and so loving, and we could sense it with each other. And it was just because he had I had kind of dropped my judgment, was at peace with him, and things had just changed. We was just, I want to relate this to the principles, the 3 principles, because the principle shows us that when we're up in our head with our thoughts, with all our judgmental thoughts, and which mine were with him, kind of thoughts of, I suppose, dislike at one time, grudge, and is another word I would use, that when those thoughts, because of what happened, and just being with him, so my thoughts went from being not very nice and full of not very nice things to being open and to being in a different space. And that is why I would recommend The Space Within by Michael Neal. There is a space within us where, which is not up in here, it's a space within which is non-judgmental, which is at peace with itself. It's here in the now, and it is where I would say we have become, in a right-minded way, a state of mind which is at ease and which is clear, where there is clarity. And in that state, which that book I mentioned by Dickon Bettinger and Natasha Swerdloff, Coming Home, we're home in that space. And that space is one of love and wisdom, contentment. And part of that, when I say love, part of that is an okayness with others, with a kind of at oneness with others, a contentment, and in a considering way, in a loving way. And I know animals are not humans, and perhaps, don't have our intellectual prowess, but I think that cat showed a lovingness and an at oneness. And certainly if a cat can do that, humans are quite capable of that. And what the right word that popped into my mind is that compassion for him, I'm coming to that space within me that had love and compassion and caring for him, and that as humans, I think we're much higher on the scale of being able to do this. I don't know, I might be wrong. But if a cat can do it, humans can do it. And the point I want to make is that that is innate in us. It exists within us. It always has done, always will do. That is our gift. And so when we get out of all this judgmental, I don't like this, I don't like that, in an acceptance way, and I don't mean giving in, not at all. In fact, when you're in that state of mind, you're more able to know what to do about things that are upsetting you, because you're much clearer minded. But you're doing it in a much wiser way because you know what to do, because you're not stuck in with contaminated thought. So I hope that's been of help to you, my little cat story. I love Tommy, well, I loved Minnie, and it is nice to love one another. I hope this has helped you. Just carry on loving. Thank you very much.